What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. We are Phantom Fix, and today I'm extremely excited to welcome Logan Pack on this channel. I'm going to be interviewing and talking about his art. He's an artist and an illustrator that does a lot of pop culture art, Star Wars, Marvel, movies, TV shows. Honestly, one of my favorite artists out there. I own a lot of his pieces of work, and met him at at MegaCon earlier this year, back in February, in Orlando. And so excited, just Logan, to talk to you about who you are, what your art's like, your inspirations, all that kind of stuff. So let's jump in. Let's just tell me about yourself. Tell me how you got started, and that kind of thing.
Awesome, man. Well, I'm excited to be here with you, Austin. Excited to talk a little bit about some of this stuff. Yeah, I've been drawing for forever. My mom tells me. My dad was a kind of like a traveling minister, and we'd be sitting through a lot of like really long, especially when you're 3 and 4 or 5 years old. Everything in a church feels like it takes a really long time. And so just sitting there with, sketch. I don't even think I knew what a sketchbook was, but with like a notebook and a pen, pencil, crayon, whatever, the thing next to the hymnal book. Sometimes in some churches they have a little pen, whatever. And then I would just be drawing stuff, drawing. I'm trying to think what I would draw. Ninja Turtles was probably the first thing that I was way into, was Ninja Turtles. And I would try and draw everything, their weapons, the vehicles, the enemies, so it's always kind of been there. So it's pretty fun.
That's awesome. When did you decide to start kind of doing this, on your own? Once you got older and you started making art and selling your art, how did you kind of get into that space of the pop culture side of things?
Well, I didn't go to school with intent to do art. I mean, I drew forever. I was the kid that was just always drawing, like in class or whatever, like getting terrible grades and drawing a whole lot. Drawing in my school books and stuff. Don't do that, kids. If there's kids listening, don't do that. Yeah, I went to school to do film. I have like a film tech degree, so it wasn't drawing stuff, but didn't end up being quite like what I was hoping or thought maybe it could be. And it was just, things end up different than you expect oftentimes. But my wife was just encouraging me to, I didn't think it was worth necessarily printing and selling and stuff. But we would go down to like Office Max or Office Depot and have them run off prints. And so we set up a shop on Etsy initially, is what it was. And I think I had 3 things. I had a Batman, a Daredevil, and then I had it was Clint Eastwood and Toshiro Mifune as essentially the same character, but from 2 different movies. The movie Fistful of Dollars is almost a shot-for-shot remake of the movie Yojimbo. And so it's both of them together. So that's what I had on the Etsy store was I think it was just those 3 things. But just trying to sell them and see if people were interested in it. People, I would sell one every 2 or 3 months or whatever for a while. And it was just like, oh, somebody bought. You get so excited when one person would buy one thing at that point.
Yeah.
And so that was pretty, it was an interesting experiment, but she definitely, my wife definitely taught me to believe in my ability for sure. Cause I probably would have been too shy to sell, any of it at that point. That was a million years ago, but yeah.
Well, thank you to your wife. Cause I feel like a lot of people have been enjoying your art. I mean, you're out there at, Comic-Cons, and I found you, I think it's probably been 3 years now. You just popped up on the Instagram space. I think I saw like one of your images or something, and started looking into it. I mean, obviously my algorithm knew me at the time, so I knew what I was looking for. And
had you figured out? Yeah.
Had me figured out for sure. So, but when did you really start taking off? I mean, like, when did you, because you got a website now, you're going to these Comic-Cons, like, when did that start happening?
Well, I've been doing the shows the whole time that I was selling art too. So, I mean, it may have been a year later or something. I think I may have had some stuff on Etsy since maybe I think 2011, and then 2012 was when I started doing the shows. And shows. If you guys are listening to this guy's videos, you probably know we're talking about comic conventions. But I said listening to his videos. That's kind of wild. If you're watching his videos and or listening, we're talking about comic conventions. And I did my first one in 2012. I was with my buddy Devin Kraft, who you can also look up. He does a lot of similar stuff to what I do, but we have different styles for sure. But we kind of came up together, kind of inspired each other. He would he would often begrudgingly refer to himself as the Vegeta to my Goku. I don't know if he would like me admitting that for him right now, but that's what he would say when we were teenagers. He'd be like, "Oh man, I don't want you to like get this. I just got it figured out. So like I don't want you to figure it out yet." But I think I might be the Vegeta, his Goku. I'm not sure. But no, he's an awesome dude. We shared a space at a convention in Albuquerque, New Mexico, which is I'm in Roswell, New Mexico. That's where I live, alien town, if you will. But Albuquerque is like 3 hours away, and that's kind of the only like big-ish city in New Mexico. It's not even that big. It's like 1 million people, like metroplex population.
Yeah.
So not even really that big, but we shared a 6-foot table at this convention. But we were amped up because Stan Lee was going to be there. I made a piece with Stan Lee on it, a piece of art with Stan Lee on it, and went and got it signed from him. But he actually like noticed it and paid attention, which was really cool and surreal. And then also Kevin Smith was going to be there as well and do like a live podcast recording there, which was pretty cool. We got to go see. Me and Devin and my wife went to that. But yeah, we shared a 6-foot table at this show. And so we each had 3 feet of space. And I had like a poster board with prints that I had like glued onto the poster board of what I was selling. You know, I wasn't selling them off the poster board. I didn't rip them off the poster board.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was actually gluing them on. So a lot of progress has been made since then. But that's kind of, 2012 was the very first one. So.
Dude, that's awesome. That Stan Lee story is crazy. So people like him obviously are the greats. They've been everything we know about comic books and superheroes and pop culture comes from people like him, Jack Kirby, all those kind of guys. Who would you say is like? Did you gain inspiration from those, or did you kind of just go on your own style? And
it's all inspiration.
Okay.
Yeah, every bit of it. I mean, I don't think there's anybody that does art, especially of like characters they like, that they're not into it because they're inspired. Because I think that's everybody. You have, your different set of inspirations, right? For me, were you a big comic book reader?
So funny enough, I didn't read a whole lot of comic books as a kid. I think the ones that I gravitated to were usually Batman and Superman, if I did have any.
Sure.
But as I got older, I started collecting like some of the 70s Star Wars comic books, the further adventures of Indiana Jones. I have like all of those. So from like a collector standpoint and an artistic standpoint, because I just appreciate art, I love that kind of older style. But yeah, it took a while. I think I was more into just the animated shows of superheroes and that kind of thing.
That's cool. I was definitely more into cartoons as well, cartoons and video games and toys and stuff. Than comic books. But when you're a little kid, you get like a comic book and you read that same comic book. That's how I did anyway, for like months. And then it's all falling apart and stuff. But mine were Batman and Superman for sure were the first two. And then they had the like Shadows of the Empire, or I can't remember which one it was, but it was the I saw it at the grocery store on a rack. And this was back when they sold comic books in the grocery store. Like I remember. Issues. It was Luke Skywalker standing in front of these big like ships, and he just looks evil. And I was
Dark Empire.
Yeah. So good. I think I only had one issue of it, but I read that one issue probably 20, 30, 40 times, something crazy, So I was probably maybe 8 years old when that came out.
Yeah.
But how old are you?
33.
33. Okay. So you're like 5 years younger than me. That's
Yeah.
We can talk about things. That'll work.
Close enough. We got it.
Yeah. You remember the Batman the Animated Series as well, but it would have been around like your whole life, and that like came around when I think I was 5 when it came on.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a big dude. Batman the Animated Series was huge. But yeah, my influences with art for sure initially are going to stem just from the character designs, right? Like not even knowing what artists we're talking about, but like the vibe and the designs of like the Ninja Turtles, right? And Batman the Animated Series has such a Art Deco, but yet timeless and somewhat futuristic art style. It was inspired by the I believe his name was Max Fleischer, Superman animated shorts.
Yeah.
Which they had. I think there was one attached to some VHS that me and my brother got at like Sonic Drive-In or something. They had, I don't know if they, for a little bit, they were giving out VHS tapes with like cartoons on them, like old cartoons.
The 90s were the best. They did that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, you don't even know what they're going to be on from one week to the next. It's like, let's try VHS tapes of Woody the Woodpecker for the kids. So, but it had one of those Max Fleischer Superman cartoons. Have you seen any of those?
Oh, dude, yeah, that art still holds up to this day. Like it's incredible.
And you can see it on Batman, right? I mean, Batman was very much like a more mass-produced, like they knew they were making a bunch of episodes.
Yeah.
So it's, apart from the intro is absolutely at least on that Max Fleischer level, if not beyond. Yeah. But you can see that like influence for sure in there, I think. But
yeah, I've seen interviews with Bruce Timm, who did those animated shows. He's been talking about Max Fleischer and how those were inspirations in the golden age.
That's awesome.
That kind of stuff. So I know that was a big, especially with the Superman animated series, they tried to kind of like keep that same flavor. Moving forward. Yeah. And then obviously you got Justice League and Justice League Unlimited. And so that all that art and the way that I view even DC stuff, like especially with the modern DC movies and stuff, I'm just like, man, this doesn't even touch what Bruce Timm did with those shows.
Yeah. I believe in James Gunn though. I believe him. I think he's gonna get us there. I haven't watched your Superman review, so I don't know, but
you may not, you're not gonna agree with us.
I'm not gonna agree with you. Okay.
Did you like it?
I actually love that movie.
Okay. We didn't like it. But...
I love that movie. I love the characterization of the main character. First of all, I love that you can. I felt like you could see his heart.
Yeah.
I don't even. It was just on him. I'm a big origin story fan. That's my favorite kind of thing, and this is not that.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily the choices that I would have made, but also like you don't want me to make a Superman movie. You want someone like him to make it and not me. But But so I'm a big fan of origin stories, and that's not there. Like it just kind of drops you into it. But to me, it did feel like, and you're talking about Justice League Unlimited and Superman animated series. To me, it felt like I was dropped in the middle of, like, let's just say there's an imagined version of those shows that were just, high budget live action instead of animated. To me, it reminded me of that. This is an episode. It's not even necessarily the first episode, but it's an episode of a show that already is rich in detail and characterization, and there's stuff already going on. And that could feel a little jarring, and I can understand if people have issues with that. And it was also very much a James Gunn movie. It was very much like it was the same flavor as Guardians of the Galaxy. Yeah. But at the same time, I think he understood the task of who the character is. So I don't like he wasn't Star-Lord. He wasn't certainly not a Suicide Squad character.
Yeah.
He was to me, he felt like the Superman that I remember watching, that I remember reading. I liked Man of Steel, but Man of Steel to me, I wouldn't say had like lovable qualities to it. And I think this movie, to me, was like dripping of like lovable qualities. So, but I'm also I'm not a huge Superman guy. Like I'm not a huge, like Superman hasn't been my character since I was a little kid. When I was a little kid, he was, but as soon as the X-Men showed up, I was like, forget it.
Yeah.
forget this guy. But
see, I grew up with Smallville. I love that show.
Oh yeah.
Family. And so I had, I think I had specific expectations for the Superman. I'm not even saying I like Man of Steel, but I'm not even saying it's the greatest.
Yeah.
I don't think some of the flavor that James Gunn gave I didn't like. I felt like Clark was getting beat up half the time. And I know there's reasons for that, but
yeah, I want to see him get beat up though.
Okay, I mean,
you have to make him attainable. You have to make him approachable. You have to make him feel like a man, but he also has to seem powerful. I mean, George R.R. Martin said almost like the opposite thing of what he said, where he was like, I felt like I believed that someone had all these powers. It's not the opposite of what you said, but like, I feel like you have to be able to get beat up to feel the ability of the powers.
Yeah.
Because then you see a scale, right? Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know.
Interesting.
But we can talk about this.
We may have to talk about this more on another video.
Yeah. We don't need to talk about this the whole time.
Well, no, it's great because I mean I think your inspirations come from a lot. Being the age you are, they come from places that all of us kind of grew up wondering. Like it was like a sense of wonder for these heroes and these characters, and you just took that inspiration, that like love for it, and you just moved it over to the page. So I think that's why your art speaks so much, because I mean, like especially your Star Wars art, it just like it brings those characters to life in ways that I've never seen before, and I really like the kind of I don't know if gritty is the right word, but it kind of like it looks like a physical like if you were in the Star Wars universe and you saw like a sign or something like on the wall. That's what it looks like a wanted poster or something like that. It kind of has that feel, and maybe that was what you were going for. That's kind of why I like it so much. But what is your jumping into kind of just your process? Like, do you have a specific creative process when you like I'm going to do this character, and you jump into it? Like, is there a specific way that you go about that to get the result?
Yeah, I would tend to gravitate toward characters that like mean something to me and that I would have connected with watching the movie or whatever it may be. And so on the Star Wars ones in particular, like you're talking about, I think you might show some but people can maybe see a little bit of what we're talking about. But
so we got one right here. Here's the Luke Skywalker.
Perfect. They all have stuff in the background, right? But I didn't want it to be a cluttery, background that takes away from just the iconic image of the hero, right? So it focuses in on that pose and the emotion of them, right? But then I try and include a lot of story in the background around them. So the backgrounds are really just almost like schematics, details of like a lightsaber or a ship or somebody's home or their planet or whatever it is, right? And then their names are on there too, but their names are in Arabesh, like Star Wars ease. But yeah, so that's important to me, where you can you get a sense and you're reminded of your attachment to that character, right? Just when you look around on it. So that's always kind of the first stuff I think about. The very, very first thing is always the face. And for the likeness of the faces, I'm looking for one. I'll go in, let's say it's that Luke Skywalker one. So I'm looking for a picture, just on Google or whatever, or go scrub through the movie sometimes. But a picture of Mark Hamill, and it may not even be Luke Skywalker. It might be, I like it to be, the character, because I think that's important to have that characterization in there. But even if it's just Mark Hamill being Mark Hamill, right, and just a face where the angle and the expression is kind of after the emotion that I'm going for to depict.
Yep.
And so the very first thing I do is make it look as much like the actor, like thinking or feeling the things that I might have thought or felt like watching the character,
Yep.
And so I'm trying to capture that. And then from there, I throw out photo reference unless it's just for detail, because I don't want any of my pictures to look like one that already exists out there.
Yeah.
I want it to feel like that character as much as possible.
Yeah.
So it's kind of an interesting kind of balancing act that you got to go for, but I want it to very much not be like other stuff that's out there, So
Yeah, and I think I'm sure I'm not the only one out there. I mean, I know tons of people have bought your art at conventions and that kind of thing. That's why I gravitated so much to your art, because it was familiar things, but nothing that I'd ever seen before. I've bought tons of, art from different poster companies, whether it's, Mondo, Bottleneck Gallery,
sure.
Gray Matter Art. There's all kinds of independent people out there. But your images, and the reason that I keep on buying from you, is because I think they invoke that storytelling aspect in subtle ways. And I think I'll put some, as we're talking, I'll put some of these images on the screen for people to see. But I mean, I think one of the things that is so great about the pieces that I like from you is like Han and Leia. You did the ones from the expanded universe, like the after Return of the Jedi, and you had the little silhouettes of them with their kids, Jason and Jana.
Yeah.
Obviously, major Star Wars fans would know that, maybe
and
not
you
everyone.
got a print of Han Solo, I believe, if I'm remembering correct, without the silhouettes at the bottom.
I did.
Right. Like I had saved a file and then I decided to add those in. I think I made like 2 prints or something like that, like test prints.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, I want to add this. And I added them later that day after I made those couple prints. And somehow I had still had that file saved. And then I made like a whole bunch of prints of the one without them on there. I was like, oh no. So if you have those, you have a special edition. That's what I'm going to call it. But
I have both versions. So it's
But yeah, no, I think that I don't know, man. First of all, I like that stuff. I like those stories. I like the more. I mean, obviously, I like mainstream stuff because I like Star Wars. It's about as mainstream as it gets. But yeah, I like the stuff I was into when I got into Star Wars. I don't even think I realized what it meant that it was as big as it was.
Yeah.
And
same.
so to me, it kind of something about it feels underground, even though it's super mainstream, right? But maybe it's because like learning later, it certainly wasn't aware of this when I was 8 or whatever, but learning later, the original movie is kind of underground. It is kind of indie, it's and that's such a lovable thing. I mean, all the stuff I was into when I was growing up, I used to wake up at 3 or 4 in the morning on Saturdays, which is crazy because everybody's supposed to sleep in on those days. But it's because they would show Dragon Ball, like not Dragon Ball Z, like Dragon Ball, and it was like the bad dubs of it before they made better ones. And like there was a Mega Man anime, and then Ultraman. They would run old episodes of Ultraman early in the morning, and so I would get up and watch that stuff because that's definitely what I gravitated towards. Was like, I don't know if it's like that hidden gem kind of thing where you're just like, is anybody aware of this? Does anybody know this is on? Do they know they're broadcasting this right now? Like that kind of thing is just interesting to me. I don't know why or where that comes from, but it's certainly, I don't know. It's huge. It's huge. And I almost feel like that's kind of going away either it's a real small channel or on YouTube or somebody on TikTok or whatever, that might be like, oh, nobody else knows about this. This is my thing. Like that might be that, but I don't know how much it exists anymore in the space of things that has like a budget or might like have action figures that they made and then everybody forgot about, or those things to me were always the coolest.
And I think that's why people gravitate towards nostalgia so much, is because we haven't really been able to recapture a lot of those elements that we grew up with. To feel like that. I mean, that was before the internet and a lot of things too. You didn't have things that were so mainstream or talked about, so you didn't feel like you were in the minority when you liked this stuff. I mean, I had friends that liked Star Wars, but it wasn't. I probably loved it more than most people. I mean, I read all the books and had all the toys and all that kind of stuff. And it wasn't until I got older that I was like, oh, like other people actually like this. You know what other people were. Because I didn't even know people hated the prequels until I grew up. Prequels. So
I was an interesting age for that too, because I was right in the pocket of like being in between those two crowds.
Yeah.
So I would have been in between you and the guy that was like a real cynical fan of the original trilogy, right? Yeah. And who Jar Jar Binks just pissed him off like you wouldn't believe, But like I remember, I was 12 when the Phantom Menace came out, and so like I remember seeing the toys at KB Toy Store when they first stocked them right at the entrance of the store, and just being like, "Whoa, that's a young Obi-Wan Kenobi." Like that's the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life, right? And then the other I bought Obi-Wan, and the other toy I bought was Jar Jar Binks, because I was like, what is this interesting alien character? Because I love, right, that you can't help but love as a kid the cantina. Like to me, the cantina was just incredible in the original Star Wars, and Jar Jar is definitely of that, like the lineage of that. Where it was just like, whoa, who is this dude? What's his story? Like, what's he, what's he move like? What, like, and then we found out, and a lot of people weren't, they weren't happy about. I think it's because they forgot that they were a kid when they saw Star Wars originally,
for sure,
and that it was made for them.
Yep.
And so they grew up and they're like, this is supposed to still be for me. And George Lucas is like, no, it's for the same people it was always for. Not individual people necessarily, but the same crowd, right? It's for the same, like it's for the same, he's going after the same viewer, the same reader, the same participant, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, but I was right in between, because I was 12, 15, and 18 when those three movies came out. Okay. And so over the course of them, I was getting cynical myself about those movies, but I started out loving them too, because I had like every video game that came out of like episode 1. We would get like toys and stuff, like Taco Bell and stuff. Even they had like cups.
I remember.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, you would. Oh, yeah, you would have been super excited about that.
I had all the toys. I had the watches when they came out at Burger King.
Oh yeah. The watches. Yeah. Crazy. But yeah, so I became cynical of it, especially into adulthood. I was like, man, I just only like the original trilogy. And then I watched Clone Wars. And I saw it in the movie theater, and I was like, oh yeah, I was so right about where Star Wars has gone. And then after Clone Wars had done maybe 3 seasons on TV, I watched the first few episodes, and I was like, yeah, this is more of the same. Kind of cool that there gets to be a Star Wars TV show. I wish I would have had that when I was younger. Yeah. But like watching them, and I watched them on Blu-ray, and each episode had like a making of, kind of like behind the scenes, like what goes into this episode. I don't know if have you seen those like on the Blu-rays? Yep. And I was like, oh my gosh, so much craft goes into this. And I remember especially when I think there were 2 of them. One of them was the Grievous, where there's that episode where you see the statues of like the different forms that he's had over time, and he becomes more and more machine-like, right? Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Over time. And I was like, whoa, that is beautiful. Like just seeing like what goes into that. And they were showing these other statues like that exist in the real world that was kind of mimicking. And then there was the other episode that was basically, you know, they were talking in the making of thing about how they wanted to do a Godzilla episode in Star Wars. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. And then you begin to see
Zillow Beast.
Yeah, the Zillow Beast. Yeah. And but they're doing what George Lucas was doing with Star Wars.
Yeah.
Right? Where it was homages to the things that he was most passionate about as a youngster himself, you know? And it was some of the things George Lucas was interested in as well that they were referring to in Clone Wars, but then also stuff that was their own thing, right? And especially Dave Filoni. And to me, that was just so cool. And I just latched on hard to it. And Clone Wars does, for sure, objectively get better and better and better as it goes.
It does. It also elevates the prequels, in my opinion.
And it absolutely, dude. And that's what I was going to say, man. And I can go back and watch the prequels now and appreciate them in a totally different, from a, you know, it's not the same as it was whenever I first watched them as a kid. You know, because I see the flaws in it still, but I also see the beauty in it too.
Yeah.
And I went and watched Revenge of the Sith in the theater again.
I did too.
You know, a few months ago, and I was like, oh, this is really, you see, like, I could see the corniness. I could see, I'm still in that pocket that I was talking about. I could see the stuff that these older guys didn't like about it, but I could also see again through watching the Clone Wars. I could see again, like, the stuff that I saw in it and that my younger brothers saw in it and liked even more than me, you know, at that time. So it was it's really cool when something can elevate, you know, and kind of re-emphasize stuff for you. If you're paying attention, a lot of people are still too bitter or, you know, stuck up to even care. Like they're not going to go watch those behind the scenes things on the Clone Wars episodes. You know, they're just going to be like, I just don't like it. And actually I hate it. So everybody should hate it, you know, but it's, you know, it wasn't for some of these guys. They weren't there anymore.
Well, you know, it's, you know, obviously with your craft, you have an appreciation for how things are made and especially the artistic, you know, aspect of that. And even as a young kid, even though, you know, I don't do art like you, I appreciated behind the scenes stuff. I would always buy DVDs so I could watch the behind the scenes.
Oh, yeah.
Stuff. Still to this day, like I don't buy as many physical, you know, media as I used to, but I still think it's better because you get a lot of things within that retains versus streaming. And that's why I love Clone Wars, because I think the art style, you got to see it progressively get better and how well they were doing to advance that craft with 3D animation. I mean, George has always been kind of ahead of the time a little bit. And so I think now Star Wars animation is incredibly beautiful. It looks, I mean, Tales of the Jedi looked amazing. I mean, I always said if we got like a Heir to the Empire adaptation with that animation, it'd be incredible. So cool. And I think that's, you know, back to just talking about your art and connecting that, I think a lot of your art bridges the gap, in my opinion, of that type of Star Wars animation style, but also making it a little bit more realistic for, like, because I mean, what you do, I mean, yeah, you take that likeness, but you even done characters like Rebels characters, Clone Wars characters, and you brought them to life with on your, you know, your portraits that look like they would look like in live action. I actually thought your Ezra piece looks better live action wise versus what Amon did in Ahsoka, but
and it's somewhat based on his likeness too, actually.
Yeah,
so,
for sure.
Yeah, but it's supposed to be the Rebels Ezra's for sure. Yeah. No, I appreciate that, man. And you probably don't even have the Bad Batch ones yet, huh?
No, I just have the Republic Commando one
after MegaCon. Yeah. I did all the Bad Batch, and that was so fun. Like, just like that was, to me, that was the most fun. Those and the Rebels ones, because you want them to feel like the cartoon character, and that's just a little different, you know. Yeah. So you're reading in, and you're kind of, you know, you're remembering more things from the show, like to try and kind of educate like what you're doing whenever you're making the art, and versus just like I'm trying to capture this likeness, right? So,
well, you've done so many. Yeah, you've done so many characters now. I feel like at this point, you continue to grow. Do you have any teases for what you're working on? Doesn't even have to be Star Wars, but like Is there anything you're excited about doing moving forward?
Oh man, I have a lot of stuff I'm excited to do. I'm more excited, honestly, and this is, might make some people sad on this that are listening, but like I'm more excited to do more stuff that's not fan art stuff.
Cool.
I mean, it all will be, it'll just be, Star Wars is fan art. Star Wars is fan art for sure. So if you're like, if you're like deep fans of fan art, maybe you will be excited. I hope you are, but I want to do some more original stuff. I've had an idea for my own thing, for my own comic, since my oldest daughter was 1 and she's about to be 13. So that lets you know how long I've been sitting on this thing. But it's hard to find time to illustrate a comic book, and to do it yourself. And I'm adamant, like, I've had people kind of be like, well, if you need help, writing or whatever, and maybe I should be less stubborn and take them up on it. But I really want to do it, like, as much as possible. I want to do it myself because I want it to be like doing any one of these pieces that I've done, but it's the whole thing, it's the narrative, it's the design, it's the page layouts, it's everything. So, but yeah, more and more stuff like that. I want to do more stuff. I want to do more like historical pieces of like historical things, like old literature, like characters from the Bible. I really want to do where you kind of get in, even like comic panels with like backstory, moments. I picture like a really cool iconic image of Moses with a staff, and then like a panel at the top of like the young mother laying him in the river, like putting the carriage in the river and floating him away, but just like weeping.
Okay.
At the same time.
Yeah.
But she's doing what she's got to do. But yeah, I want to do so much stuff like that, but it's just hard to find the time to pause. And then also there's people that are excited for more, of what I've already done. So I do have plans I probably won't come out with any new Star Wars stuff until maybe May 4th, because I always do a release. So I would like to make that kind of like a regular annual thing and just put out a few, because I've done so many of them at this point. But there are still so many to do. But I also like doing obscure characters, as you know.
I would love that.
You're gonna be. I'll tell you, you're gonna be excited for what I have planned for May 4th, because I think it was you that asked about a couple of characters.
It probably was.
So I'm gonna do a theme. So I typically, like, I did a Bad Batch this last time. I did Rebels for the theme one time. The one time I did George Lucas, Dave Filoni, and Jon Favreau ones. And so it's going to be a theme like that, but I think I'm planning like maybe 5 characters.
Okay.
So, but yeah.
Yeah. The more like the either expanded universe stuff, the game stuff, those characters that aren't as mainstream anymore, those are the type of characters that I feel like I would gravitate towards.
You're going to be excited.
Sweet. I'm excited.
I'll tell you that. Yeah. Yeah, man.
You're just making my wallet hurt at this point.
It's not too bad. My stuff started out as like cheap, and then I raised the prices above what everybody else had, and people were like, whoa. Are you going to sell those? And then I actually sold more than I did when they were cheaper. That was a weird experiment. Nice. And then I left them the same for a decade, my prices. I just only went up this year. So just because my stuff was cheaper than everyone else's, and I didn't want that. I was like, I don't want to be like the budget guy, so I just kind of raised them to the new kind of normal, I guess. But yeah, it's for fans. So you don't want to price people out either,
Yeah, of course.
So
Yeah, people at cons when they were coming to your booth, I'm sure they already bought a slew of things, so they're looking to,
There's a lot of opportunity for sales in those things. So yeah, there's a lot of competition is also is also what that means.
for
But
sure.
yeah, I love doing the Star Wars stuff. I love doing all kinds of different ones. It's just fun. Um, I think my stuff probably looks in world to you because of um, like what I gravitated to in Star Wars the most was not the lightsabers or the spaceships or the Force or any of it. Uh, it was like what we're talking about, that cantina. Like from the moment C-3PO and R2-D2 land in the desert and they're just kind of lost out there, and from that point up till they're on the Millennium Falcon and they're flying out, that's my favorite part of any Star Wars, is that right there. And I think it's because I identified with it to some degree visually and aesthetically, because I grew up on a farm in New Mexico, and so it's very deserty. And the stuff I was around were like old barns and old tractors that were falling apart. The paint was peeling off of them. Like all the stuff I had looked like that kind of. So like it's just it connected with me. That aesthetic connected with me, and so I just love that. I love like old stuff. I've gotten people have sent me messages being like, "Dude, why would you sell me this print? It looks like I got it out of like a garbage bin." There's all this text. Yeah, dude. One guy literally said, I got it from it looks like I got it from the bottom of a garbage bin.
Just because of the style of what it looked like.
The texture, yeah, and I have those paper folds and stuff on there, but to me, I'm like,
That's crazy.
But part of my brain is so crazy though that it thinks about like crumpling up the paper before I mail it out in a tube. Because I want it to look old. I want it to look like maybe you did find it.
That's why
in
I
the
like
bottom of a trash bin, as the guy said.
That's
but
crazy.
Yeah, I know. I'm glad it resonates with you though, for sure. But
well, I can't be the only one. I mean, you got a decent following out there, and I know people, come to your booths when you're out there too. So, I mean,
no, I've been blessed enough for sure, man. Definitely. Yeah, no, and I just at this point it's, I started doing it because it was a way I could make money, but it's become like, dude, I just want to be around the people, just want to be around, we can nerd out about the same stuff, but then even just, sometimes people are coming in and they've had a hard year, and that's the main thing they were looking forward to, and so you've got to be there for those people to make that part of their year. Right.
It's all about community. I think the nerd space is definitely community, but I mean,
absolutely.
That's why we do this channel, me and the guys, and that's why I wanted to have you on, because I feel like we're kind of all in that same circle and sharing ideas and stories, and
yeah, man.
So it's really cool, especially when we can kind of do that in person in one space.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Very cool. Well, it's cool you're doing this.
Yeah,
pretty awesome.
I hope that. Well, I don't want to. I want to respect your time for sure, but I definitely appreciate you coming on and talking about your craft and just swapping stories.
Dude.
Definitely going to have you on soon again, and we can talk about it.
Yeah, dude, absolutely. Anytime, man.
But yeah, I would love to know, just for those of you out there watching and got this far in the video, do you like this type of content? Like, if you have any questions for Logan, let us know down below in the comments. Like this video, subscribe to our channel. We're going to be doing a lot more of this type of content. We're getting people on and just interviewing, talking about what we like, different people's skills, that kind of thing. So definitely stay tuned for more of that. But appreciate everybody watching. Until next time, we are Phantom Fix. See you.